Good morning, everyone. Wow, it's really loud. Sorry. Maybe I can turn it. Yeah. Thank you. My name is Petr Macek, and I'm from Biology Center of the Czech Academy of Sciences, and jointly I'm collaborating with Estonian University of Life Sciences here in Tartu. And I will talk here about the effect of climate change on plant and plant-plant interactions in the high Arctic. Well, first I will go through the effect of climate change a little bit more global way to mention it, because I think everything is maybe obvious, but there are some less obvious changes. And then I focus on my own research. So let's start with the most obvious thing, that the climate during the last century is warming, and everyone acknowledges it, of course, and you all know about it. The fastest it is in the Arctic, where it also increases in a fast speed, 4 times as fast as the global average. And it influences all the ecosystem functioning. As I said, I will start with obvious changes, which are here represented by glacier forelands and glacier extents. You can see that the purple line indicates, maybe I can show, for instance, this one. Purple line indicates the extent of glacier foreland in 1936, while the red lines indicates the current extension of glacier foreland. And you can see vast areas of sea and land have been deglaciated in last almost a century. There are also some other obvious changes. I will try to ask help for making the video working. Maybe it's not going to happen, but everyone knows the polar bears flowing on the last sea ice and starving there. And the consequence of this is also that these nice creatures are wandering around our facilities and around our stations as well. So it causes quite a lot of troubles and problematic situation for both sides. But apart of these obvious changes, there are also less noticeable changes, like that the seasonal ecosystem respiration increased by 30% in response to 1.4 degrees change of air temperature. And organic matter decomposition and methane emissions are following in the same way. And there is a net impact on regional climate forcing, where we see the positive feedback from the vegetation, especially the taller vegetation like trees and shrubs. They again increase the effect of albedo, decrease the effect of albedo, so less sunshine is reflected back by light colors of snow, and more warm is accepted. So we can say that taller vegetation amplifies warming. And here we comes to the vegetation and its role. We define subarctic, low and high Arctic depending on the vegetation. So for instance, subarctic is defined by the tree line, while low Arctic is where most of the shrubification and obvious shrubification, it means increase of shrub cover, is occurring, and where also most of the permafrost is thawing. But I should say that also in high Arctic the permafrost is thawing. Here you can see the permafrost going really to the upper layers of the soil, and it's a picture of a site in 2014, and this year we have been sampling soil cores at the very same place. And the ice was gone, the permafrost was melted. If we follow, oh, thank you, wonderful. If we follow the changes in low Arctic and in comparison to high Arctic, there are two examples, two locations. Let's focus on plants and animals. We can see that in low Arctic, the shrubs and graminoids are increasing, while in high Arctic, most species decrease. And it's in terms of species number, not on the cover of the vegetation, because NDVI, the measurement of greeniness of the environment is increasing in both sides. And we speak about Arctic greening. But there is also Arctic browning. I already mentioned that shrubs are increasing in cover shrubs and trees, and this happened not only in the altitudinal scale, but also in the latitudinal scale. Shrubs are advancing. Here you can see some location in North Canada, where in '87 there were barely any shrubs. There is something similar, small here. But nowadays, well, 20 years later already, there has been lush shrub vegetation, and it's increasing all over the low Arctic as a response to climate warming. And this shrub expansion has been associated with species losses and decreasing of richness, plant community richness, as well as species and functional richness and evenness. And it seems that temperature and plant-plant interactions are emerging as the main drivers of the directional change in the Arctic vegetation. When we speak about plant-plant interactions, we usually think about the negative interactions, the competitive interactions, how the plants steal each other's resources. But there exists something completely different, which is called facilitation, positive interactions. Here you can see typical Arctic tree, high Arctic tree, sorry, and high Arctic columnar cacti. The tree is elevating the water from the deep soil layers and redistributing it to the columnar cacti that are growing beneath. Of course, these are from deserts in arid zones. But similar facilitation, similar positive interaction is known from the alpine systems, where it is known to enhance soil resources, milden the climatic extremes, both high and low temperature, and what is most interesting for me, it also increases the species diversity. What is growing inside these cushion plants, it's more diverse than what is growing in the surrounding. And if these positive changes, positive effects of cushion plants are combined with increase in temperatures, then we can expect that, well, it can ameliorate the conditions, and the cushions will serve as a more as a better conditions for beneficiary species. It results in stronger facilitative effect, right? Could be, but we can think that there will be an increase of individuals, maybe not the increase of diversity, but the increase of individuals, yes. And to follow this, to investigate this, we followed the cushion plant, small one, not as big as you saw in the previous pictures. It's called Silanacolis, and we followed it in the central part of Spitsbergen for last 10 years. And we tried to answer the following questions. If there is any specific species or functional shift related to the environmental changes, and how these plant-plant interactions are changing under warmer climate and reduced herbivory pressure. I will explain this later. Well, just directly. Because we used the manipulative experimental design at 2 nearby locations, and we established warming treatments by open-top chambers, but these open-top chambers are also preventing the herbivores to go in and graze, so we establish an intermediate treatment, which is exclusion of herbivores, and of course the control plots. The herbivores that are excluded are these 2 bird species, one resident ptarmigan, one migratory species goose, and cute reindeer that is resident in Svalbard. And we saw that the warming treatment has a clear effect on the snowmelt, for instance, on the temperature inside the open-top chambers. There is an earlier snowmelt in these conditions, and warmer temperature imprints into the phenology shifts of the plants. So plants are flowering earlier, and they are also fruiting earlier, which may be beneficial for them. So first I ask on the species changes through the time and in different treatments. And second, I distinguish the plant-plant interaction by means of relative interaction index. So let's focus on species change. You already saw this plant, Salix reticulata, from previous lecture, so it's nothing new for you. And we can conclude that from this slide that in warming treatments, this line, and also partially in exclosure treatments, the species that grew the best were Salix reticulata and Silanacolis, discussion species. Also Bistorta vivipara, also mentioned in the previous lecture. Its dominance is increasing in the herbivory exclosures, but not all shrub species are the same. For instance, Dryasoctopetala is not enjoying so much the warmer conditions and tends to be more common in the control plots. It can be seen in this picture as well, where these are the two shrub species. I spoke about the shrubification or Arctic browning. You can see that there is the time direction, so more shrub species in recent times, but not all of them are responding positively to warming treatment. They are more toward the natural situation. And in contrast to the shrub species, there are other groups of plants, like herbs, for instance, represented by Oxyria digina, Erigenion humilis, or Minuartia, which are decreasing in time, and they are more toward the start of the experiment. I will skip this. The second location shows basically similar pattern, and we can say that there is a noticeable species change even in the high Arctic vegetation, and it's both temporal and related to the treatments. Although in both cases this change is rather small, and it could be this limited extent of this change could be due to the strong resilience of tundra vegetation against climate change. But there is also an indication of functional shift from herb community to shrub community in time. Let's move towards plant-plant interactions. I mentioned a relative interaction index, which we use for basically comparing what is growing within the cushion, how many individuals, how many species, and we compare it with the same area that is in the surrounding of the cushion. And values above 0 of this index indicates positive interactions, while negative values indicate competitive interactions, and the greater the absolute value from 0 is, the stronger the interaction. There's some nice visualization of this graph, but let's don't focus on these lines. These are some addition. And if you look at the Ramet number in control plots, these are these two, it seems that nothing much happened. The cushions do not represent better or worse conditions in terms of total vegetation. But for instance, exclosures, there is a temporal change and temporal decrease of competitive interactions which prevailed before towards neutral interactions now. And slightly opposite trend can be seen from warmer conditions, where the cushions are slightly less favorable to the beneficiary species. There is a similar trend in the other location. Let's move to species number. First, I spoke about Ramet, which means the number of individuals irrespectively of species identity. Now I look at the species number, whether it is there are more species inside cushions in time, and indeed there are. And it doesn't matter whether it is in control or warming plots. There is a temporal trend of increasing species number in cushion plants. So it seems that the cushion plants are promoting the vegetation change. Let's look at one group of species, shrubs. Here in the case of Salix polaris, we can see the shrubification effect, and in all treatments there is an increase of the positive interactions in the cushions by this shrub, Salix polaris, this willow. In another willow species, Salix reticulata, they are growing side by side. The situation seems partially similar, like in control and exclosures, but also partially not. And warming here seems not to favor the extent of Salix reticulata. And if you look at the last shrub species that we have more dominant, Dryasoctopetala, we can see that the trend is completely opposite. And even in controls, the cushion plants are representing more competitive environment for this species, and even more under the warmer conditions. So species response is species specific. It should be taken into the account. It could be due to the physical parameters. I mentioned that the cushions are warmer than surrounding environment, but I didn't mention that cushions, in our case, are also drier, and it means that moisture level can be another additional driver of changes in our situation. So there is a directional change in plant-plant interaction in some species. In general, it's not significant because of the species specificity of this change. And exclosures especially are helping plants to escape herbivory pressure, and cushion then turn to provide more suitable conditions for plant growth. Warming, on the other hand, is providing slightly less favorable conditions, and there are more competitive interactions in these cushion plants. I should mention that our three shrub species are within the whole set of Arctic shrub species, rather intermediate or losers in terms of global range extent, which means that there might be more stronger competitors coming into the Arctic, high Arctic site in Central Svalbard, and there might be more novel communities emerging. I will come to this later. There is a high species turnover in the Arctic vegetation. We see that it's a dynamic system. It's not steady state. It's evolving, and it's evolving not only in species but also in plant-plant interactions. They are changing in time, and it's site, context, and species specific of these changes. And it seems that not only temperature and plant-plant interactions, but also, especially in our case, other factors like humidity could be the main drivers of directional change in both species and functional. There is a clear shrubification, but other groups are likely to follow. There is an indication that the herb species are being more suppressed, and it will inevitably lead to novel communities that will emerge in the high Arctic through either immigration or community reassembly from a regional species pool. And that's why we should study plant-plant interactions in the Arctic, because we know nothing about these novel communities and potential interactions within this new species assembly. Not mentioning the cushion plant role is not much known in the Arctic region, and there are unknown patterns of plant-plant interactions in the Arctic under the rapidly changing climate. Well, now I should just say that it's very important to have a long-term research in the Arctic, and with this statement I would probably thank you for your attention, and thank to all students and colleagues who participated at the establishment and field measurements of my research. Thank you. We still have 2 minutes for questions, and I promise I will not escape as Lauri.
So I have one question about the, it's just a speculation. So if we think about herbivory and role of herbivory in these high latitude ecosystems, do you think that due to the warming, herbivore becomes a bit less because the birds and mammals, they need less energy to spend to maintain the reserves, or because of milder climate, these mammals and birds becomes more abundant and they start to graze down many things? So what is your speculation? So which way it goes, and how important is it nowadays?
Well, the question, I should repeat it because it's recorded. The question is about herbivores, and what is my estimation of herbivore change in dominance in the Arctic, whether they will be less abundant or more abundant. And I would say that the herbivore habitat will change, and they will follow the habitat. So some of them will decrease in numbers because the habitat is shrinking. For instance, ptarmigan will decrease, while other herbivores such as geese, that is migratory and that is enjoying just the summer, they will most probably increase. But it also depends on the other factors like hunting pressure in low latitudes. But we clearly see that the herbivore habitat is changing, and the herbivores are either expanding or shrinking their habitat. So it's not evident, and it cannot be said that everything will change in one direction. The response will be, as in plants, species specific. No more questions? So then I am able to escape. Thank you and have a nice day.